You're listening to My Inner Teacher with Peter Sterios and Crystal Ariel. The answers you seek are within you.
Welcome, Elizabeth. This is an exciting episode for me because I only get to see you here in San Luis Obispo when you come out here to California from Tennessee, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's infrequent for me. And this is an hour we get to talk together instead of 10 minutes after class. I am very excited about this personally because of the investing that I've done. And I'd really like you to tell our listeners and yours, what is it that you do now, but how did you start? Like, where was the synthesis or the realization of, oh, this is my calling. This is where I want to take my inspirations into a profession of helping people.
Yeah. Thank you for this and thank you for having me on here. Yeah, besides hanging out in San Luis Obispo with the best yoga teacher that there is there, I, as far as what I do, I would say I was definitely, my background's in finance. I was an energy trader and I worked on a high security trading floor and all that. But I definitely feel like I was more almost pulled into in a way that was kind of like just even beyond my control, pulled into kind of this whole combination of investing, which would be your traditional financial principles, and just the spiritual, like the energy behind money. And that's really what I mean when I say spiritual investing. Is the way that I visualize it is you're sort of pulling down the energy. Like I think we're getting better, we're getting more attuned to using energy in our lives, and our communication is even becoming elevated with energy. But then there's this, like, how do you actually bring that into money? Because most of the time when people start to think about money, it's like somewhere in their body or something. It's like there's like, you're on the yoga mat and all of a sudden you're looking at your money and it's just like, those are two different worlds, when really it's all the same energy. And so the reason I feel like I was kind of like brought into it is that, after I left the trading floor, which was when I was 39, I really didn't have any plans to do anything like this. I like to write. So I was going to write. So, I bought a horse ranch and, I had this kind of dreamy life, with the garden and all that. And then I was sort of starting to kind of get a little bit like, okay, what's my next thing going to be in life? And then I was at a kid's birthday party and someone was like, can you help me with my money? And I said, no, I don't do that. And then by the end of the party, she had talked me into it. And then all of a sudden I found myself, this is when I lived in San Diego, I found myself driving to her house in Del Mar. And I remember I parked out front and I'm sitting there and I'm like, what the hell am I going to teach these people? Right? Like I did this, like I brought like that. My whole thing was, like I went through the whole money process, but I was also going through my whole spiritual journey at the same time. So I'd already sort of naturally combined it with myself, but I didn't really know how I was going to teach it. It was like you show up that first day as the yoga teacher and it's like game on, right?
Right.
Um, and then I remember knocking on the door and then right before I was like, I just knew it. I was like, if I'm going to do this, I have to teach it my way. And she opened the door and I said, we're going to begin this session with a meditation. And she was like, great. And that was like the beginning of it. And I somehow knew that like that I was going to be teaching this. And then it just kind of unfolded and unfolded. And I really started just helping people one on one. And then it just kind of like went from there. And then the podcast and, the speaking events and all of that, it kind of just carried itself.
Fantastic. Have you seen where, especially in volatile economic times, when there is, companies that shouldn't be declining in value, but they are declining in value? And all the investing advisors that I have say you got to, look at the long term and don't get. It's kind of a spiritual practice of not being attached to the fluctuations, like those immediate fluctuations of the mind in meditation and stuff. And I'm curious, like, the hope is when we align our spiritual uh, path with our economic reality, that they synchronize and somehow support each other. And I'm curious if the approach that you take with your clients starts from that point. Like there's a spiritual effort that I'm going to require, and there's also some budgeting and financial things that I'm going to require, or not require, but encourage you to participate in. I'm curious,
Yeah.
what's it like?
Yeah. Well, the whole thing is, connecting with the energy of money, right? And you're going to come in, everybody's going to come in at a different place. And a lot of this connection is really going to be a function of your relationship, your past conditioning, all of this, all the things that you've done with money, or all the things you regret that you haven't done, or whatever. And so coming into it, there has to be an element of forgiveness, and there has to be also an element of, this is what is from a neutral standpoint. And that's one of the things I teach, is it's money neutrality, which is basically, that is the greatest opening to money. If you actually, it's like the void, right? So that's like when you are neutral and everything steps in, which is the same thing as a spiritual principle. Now, what your goal is to ultimately to be in money neutrality, no matter what aspect of money you're dealing with, whether you're having a conversation with someone and then suddenly it switches to money. Like a lot of times people's energy will switch if they're selling something or whatever. There's that aspect of it. There's also, people categorize their money and they don't realize it, but they have different relationships with different categories. So when you talked about, like, you reference like some companies, maybe the stocks are going down, and then you have like, that's a connection between the economic and the spiritual aspect of it. A lot of that is going to come down to, like, if you're looking at an investing account and that's your only source of, you feel like, wealth, because it's really not, because we have infinite possibility. But if you are trying to believe that's my only source, that I need to do something with that, and then that goes down in value, it's really difficult for you, unless you're going to be willing to tell yourself a lie. It's really difficult for you to not, for you to be in money neutrality with that. But we create our own worlds. So why have we decided that that is our one resource? That would be the first thing. It's like, you can go online and make $1 million in a second now. We live in a world where it's like all open. We have free microphones, and money comes in as an exchange of our own energetic currency. So the value that we're putting out is, we're choosing the form of abundance. We choose that in terms of love. We choose that in terms of food. Any type of abundance, all abundance is the same energy. And so we're choosing how much money we want to receive. So it's like you're putting out the value, but you hear a lot of, especially spiritual teachers, are like, I'm doing all this stuff, but I'm making no money. Well, there's an element of receiving that hasn't actually been addressed there, because abundance wants to flow to you. It's just that you're the problem with the block. So I don't know if that helps. It's sort of like, I feel like I answered it from kind of, you, depends on where you start, but also here's the overall premise, if you can see yourself in that now.
Yeah. If you're trying to make money, like I just was at a Sedona Yoga Festival where I sat on a panel of, it was called Retreatonomics, and the marketing person that was running it was all about this kind of, how do you monetize the gift you have for the world and, make it individual. What my question was more like, okay, I'm pretty clear, and let's just talk personally. I'm pretty clear with how my relationship to money involves the things that I do. What I'm unclear of is investing, because when I look at the companies and things like that that I've invested in, I've done a vetting that was just connection to the principles of the companies. Like I learned very early that I needed to talk to the founder or needed to talk to the CEO before I would put any money into an investment. And then it was like, okay, I had this certain scale. I have a pretty good bullshit meter, and I could tell he's selling me something, or he's authentically, or she is authentically passionate or clear about the vision and where the company is headed. And nothing's guaranteed, but those simple energetic exchanges for me was what drove my investments. And if I look at a portfolio, I would say 60% of my portfolio did well, and varying degrees of well, but 40% didn't do so well. And that I'm curious, when we're addressing self-worth or trying to address the worth of an investment that you're about to invest into. Do you see the difference for me?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And something like that, like I like to I tell people sometimes, I'm like, an investment portfolio, you can see it as it's kind of like an army of soldiers. And so if you think of that, like you wouldn't want your army to be all the same soldier. You have specific soldiers that are going to do certain things, and you know that that soldier is for that thing, and that soldier is for that thing. So you know what say Tesla is doing in your portfolio, and you also know like what Chevron is doing in your portfolio, right? And so what you have is you have kind of an energetic connection with that, but you also at the same time have a reconciliation with that's just what that soldier is going to do, and that's the capacity of what that is, and that's just what is, right? And so if you think of it like that, not every soldier is going to perform at the same level. It's not designed to do that. And so not every stock is supposed to be, some magnificent growth stock. And so sometimes when people say the portfolio did a portion of it didn't do it as well, well, that is relative to the market that we saw. Like it could have done well if we had a different market. Like we've seen the market go up astronomically over 250% over the last decade. So it's that portfolio, which you were energetically connected to at the time, and you have changed. And then that's the value of being connected to your money, is that when you change, you're like, oh, maybe this doesn't feel so right. What a lot of people do is it's a black box, and then it goes 25 years and they don't look at it, right? And then they're kind of pissed off at the end. But it's a function of, it really is, you can feel the energy of the market and you can feel the energy of money. You can, but most people will not, because that also at the same time means you need to let money in to the level of loving it and that let it be part of you. And most people can't do that. They have no desire to do that.
I have some questions about, so you said that money is an energy, and I've heard that before, and that it's like the same energy of abundance. And so I'm wondering, like, do you think that choosing an investment or choosing how to invest your money or choosing how to make your money, part of it is led by intuition? How much of that is intuitive? How much of that is physical? And I'm just wondering, like, even though the energy is the same, and you mentioned like sometimes when people are having a conversation and then you start talking about money and their energy changes, it's almost like money lives in this dimension and we are not of this dimension. And so we need to do things that are of this dimension in order to master it. I know I've just put a lot of ideas out there, but like, how do you make sense of all that?
Hey, quick note. Peter's Inner Teacher Academy is launching soon. If this is resonating with you, head over to innerteacheracademy.com and grab a spot on the waitlist. These trainings are intimate and space is limited. So if you want to be first in line, tap the link in the description below and sign up.
You can also see details about my 2025 retreats at some incredible locations around the world, like Iceland, Austria, California, and New Zealand. Attendance at these trainings will count towards in-person hours for the Inner Teacher Academy. And now let's get back to the magic.
Yeah, that's great. There's so many different ways that we can look at this. But I would say when you say money is this dimension, so money is just ones and zeros. Like money has no value except for the value that we give it. Like the value of a dollar is the value that somebody is willing to pay or swap you for that dollar. It could be that that piece of paper means nothing, right? So money is simply ones and zeros. The energy behind money is what we're actually bringing to money. And you see people where it's effortless for them to make money. It's like they just go out in the world and it just kind of happens. And then you see people where it's like, oh my God, they have struggled their entire life with money, right? A lot of it has to do with, it's the same energy as love, whereby you can't get love, you can only receive love. But because we have been taught in a doing society that you need to go out there and get money, like you could throw a hammer, but it's not sustainable. It's a Band-Aid. If you really, really want to actually call in money and connect with the energy of money, then it's not about getting money at all. It's about receiving. So, people do podcasts like right here. So this is part of a business. As you do a podcast, this is also part of educating people and connecting with people and spreading ideas and all of that. Do you see how that's the same energy though? It's not a different energy unless we need to bifurcate it, and it's our own need to bifurcate it that would even cause the category. The category is actually pointless. As long as I am bringing my full power to every moment, like right now, there's nothing else that exists except for I'm here. And whoever's listening to this, whatever they take away from it, amazing. It's not for me to decide. It's for me to show up in my full power. And that gets exchanged. And the universe actually will take care of that. It is an indirect connection if you're in the world of money. Now, investing is amazing because it allows you to take that money and expand it. And what I love about investing is that you can actually kind of have I'll say a lower frequency, even though there's not like a greater or lower. You can have kind of a limited frequency to receive money. And one of the great things about investing is if you could sort of get yourself beyond like a lot of the fear or scarcity of it and put the money somewhere with investing, it actually gets it out of your frequency to a certain degree. That's why you see like people with 401ks, it's like they don't know the money is being taken out. They forget about it. And then it's outside of them. And then suddenly they're wealthy. Like that's the best thing that they could have done, because until they work on their own money story, they might not be the greatest channel for money.
And how much of that is like okay, so let me change the question. Since we're talking about my inner teacher, following your path, how much do you think being blocked with money can block your ability to truly connect with your inner teacher and the path that it's guiding you on?
Well, I think the inner teacher it only operates on abundance because it's source. And so it only operates on like allowing and receiving. So let's say you want to buy, let's put this down to like, you want to buy a stock and you're like, okay, how do I choose this stock? Do I choose it based on like, what this financial analyst is telling me, or do I choose it based on my intuition? Well, I would argue that it's not really coming from your intuition if, when you're choosing that stock, you need that stock to do something for you. The intuition of it would be something this can be different flavors, but it would be something to the degree of, I have knowledge on this stock. Like Peter said, he needs to feel like a certain level of it, right? I have the knowledge on this. However, I don't feel like I need to pick up the phone and call everybody and ask them, do I need to actually invest in this? I feel very connected to the stock, and I do think that the stock is going to do well in the future based on blah, blah, blah. Now, there's a disconnection of time. Like I use future, but there really isn't no time. All you care about is this money going to expand? And when you can really go that general and say, I'm out in the world as a channel, and I'm trading my energy, and I'm receiving money, and I'm seeing that money, whether it's $1 or $1,000, as a gift, I'm honoring it, which means I'm not avoiding it. I'm allowing it in, and I'm taking that or a portion of that, and I am expanding it through investing. Then you've created a really beautiful giant circle where you can be very intuitive about it. And that investing portfolio is actually, it becomes a teacher for you if you will stay connected to it. If you don't just park it by a 1-800 number, you can learn from your own decisions with it as well.
When you're providing a service to a client, what is are you an intermediary between your client and the investment, or are you encouraging the investor that you're kind of in relationship with to interact directly? Like that's always, I have a block interacting directly because I have this trust in a way that if I know the people that are running the company, let's say it's a company that I can get access to where I meet the people, I want them to do what they do best. And it's probably not addressing an individual shareholder's concerns about whether they're going to make enough money or not. And I've been at the table so many times with energetic, spiritually aligned people that have big dreams, and those dreams didn't necessarily pan out. And I've had these people that weren't quite there yet spiritually, but had just such a powerful idea. Mm-hmm. And in a way, that powerful idea, I sometimes will invest in that, even if there's a few things off, if I can recognize the powerful idea. And that's the paradox. And paradox is a good word, both spiritually and financially. My experience with financially. The paradox is that failure sometimes is the best lesson, like, I know on a spiritual path, that appearance of a failure is actually a step towards learning, a step towards mastery.
Yes.
And I'm curious, how's that communicated in your world? Losing $100,000 or whatever the number is, it doesn't matter. Losing $100,000 in value is a learning or is part of the process.
A painful part.
Yeah. Yeah. Granted, yes. Well, I think that is where some of this, because you really, what I'm talking about here is combining like the knowledge, the financial foundations with, as Crystal was saying, intuition, your inner teacher, all of that. Like that's really the most powerful combo that you can take anywhere, right? Knowledge plus your intuition, right? When we are investing where it's kind of like a closed caption type of environment where we're meeting with the owners and or knowing the people or whatever, that could be a publicly traded company or it could be a private company. It could be a smaller company versus a bigger company. So really what that comes down to, a lot of that is risk, and that comes down to liquidity, and that comes down to where is the company on the growth curve? Because someone can have the greatest idea, but depending where they are, there's going to be a different level of risk with that. And at some point, sometimes you can't get your money back with that. So the type of investing that I typically recommend that people do is mainly in the arena of publicly traded stocks, because there's a level of safety, if you will, there with all the reporting that is done. There's also a history. There's a certain consistency and standards that are met with that. However, you might not get that astronomical, like I invested in the seed project and then, it went through the roof, but you can do that with a certain percentage of your portfolio. I'm a big believer of diversification, so that adds to that, as well as owning real estate, as well as crypto, like all these things. I wouldn't really say that one thing is better or worse, but I would say don't be dominant in one area to the point that it's almost like either your value system or your limitation is dictating and to a certain degree limiting the amount of money that you can make.
I'm relating it back to yoga in a way. Like, I truly believe that in the beginning of your yogic journey that you need guidance. And there's a degree of luck to the guide you pick, or karma for the guide you pick.
Sometimes it's karmic.
And what'd you say?
I said sometimes it's karmic, yes.
Yeah, sometimes it's karmic. Okay, so that equation ultimately leads to the same place. Like I aligned myself with a teacher with quite a reputation, and that reputation was mostly good, but there was obviously, you can't please everyone all the time kind of thing. And he was, controversial. I found incredible insight through his guidance to bring me to a place where I don't need that guidance anymore. I've kind of elevated that's not the right word. I've taken my perception to a level where it's very clear that sometimes I don't understand it. I don't understand why I'm feeling a certain way about a certain situation, but the experience, the time, the multiple experiences that often look like failure have shown me something different. Financially, I don't understand, and I would imagine a lot of the listeners here might not understand that this guide, like you're a guide. I mean, my understanding and this conversation is kind of confirming that you help people with those decisions of how to invest. Is that correct? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then at some point, like, what if you have not a midlife crisis, but some kind of crisis in your life where you just kind of say, wow, I'm complete here. I'm complete in this phase of my life serving people, and now I'm going to serve people in a different way. Are you, and this is what I'm doing as a yoga teacher, and I don't know where this question's coming from, Elizabeth.
I love
It's
it.
evolving as I'm speaking. I am trying to, as a yoga teacher, turn over the authority of people's spiritual journey to them. Is that similar to the mastery that you have, and also the impermanence, that we're all dealing with impermanence in some ways,
Yeah. Yeah.
like even the investments.
Yes.
And so I'm just curious, like,
Yeah.
I want to be inside your brain a little bit here. Well, how does it
Well,
work?
yeah, so it's a great question. So I think that, we can turn over the authority to someone's spiritual journey, to the degree that they are willing to accept that and to sort of step into that, right? You being the example of, like, I mean, you just went right for it, right? You had the teacher and you became a literal master of it, right? That was your desire. But how many people have breezed through the yoga class and show up one session or two sessions or whatever, and then they're done with it, right? So the way that I approach this, which also is very supportive of the business that I'm building, and it's supportive of any time I sort of go out there and speak to someone, I'm able to meet them where they are. It's different levels. Like we have a $17 membership. So you can basically come in for $17, get a couple of stocks, talk to a spiritual money community, and then that's a done deal. You can stay as long as you want. It's a get started investing series. That's fine. On the opposite end of it, I would say, because we have a middle tier as well, but on the opposite end is a mastermind where I work directly with people. Now, when they come in, and I usually, it's between 12 and 22-ish people each round. And when they come in, the goal is that they spend 3 months with me, and then they've moved beyond. Like they're their own high level investment wealth portfolio. They can ask all the questions. They can go out there and do it, because unless I'm giving someone a way to quote unquote graduate, then I feel like I'm not really doing what I should be doing, which is like I come in as a guide, but that doesn't mean I insert myself in the situation the entire time, which is why I like the business model I do versus what I used to do was traditional finance. And that's more of you just pay ongoing. And it's like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden you have all these fees. For someone to learn how to do this themselves, to offset those fees. And that doesn't mean you never have an advisor. Sometimes you might, or for a little while or whatever, it depends. But you can offset fees by hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, a 1% fee on a portfolio for, let's say, the lifetime, let's say if you're 25 and then you wait until you retire, that's going to cost you a third of your portfolio. So a $3 million portfolio can cost $1 million. And so if you could teach someone how to do this, you have literally changed their life. That's like you're giving them thousands and thousands more. That affects their entire cost of living, and the amount that they have in retirement. It's really, really, these are big, big decisions. But unless I give someone the power to make these decisions, it's kind of like you're not teaching the man to fish, because then if they don't have the confidence after they leave, the program or whatever, then they're just going to rubber band back, And so I'm working on a book now, which will help fill in that gap a little bit when people finish. And I have the podcast. So I do fill in with stuff like that. But for me, it's a multi-tiered approach, and having the responsibility always to meet people with something high value wherever they are.
Yeah, that helps a lot. What does it like for those high tier people? Like when I've taught tens of thousands of students in my life, and I've seen from my teacher trainings, I've seen maybe 1,000 of them go out and start teaching. And I haven't really kept track of what they're teaching. Some I do, okay. So, and then break that down. I would say there's about 75 of my people that I've trained that have really embodied what I'm teaching and have taken these practice principles that I use and created something that I could never have created. Those are the students that I've just kind of, it's a good feeling for me that I've been that vehicle to help them get to where they are. I don't need to check in with them, and I rarely get to check in with them, but occasionally they surprise me and just show up. Like it just happened in Sedona Yoga Festival 5 or 6 years ago. She did my training, and gosh, she's just done so much, and it's beautiful. So what the people, that 75 people that I'm talking about with your community, what are they doing? Are they getting up every morning and 6 a.m. looking at when the stock open or when the market's open? Are they like, how much time a day are they, engaged personally in that level? Do you know what I'm saying? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, you can approach it from, if you look at strictly from a 3D perspective, I mean, they're sending their kids to college. Someone just told me she paid cash for her son's car. Someone told me the other day, like she said, I just paid off all of my debt because of the investing account you helped me build a year and a half ago. And, now my husband and I are debt free. So it's like you get the tangible things that people are doing. I would say from really a lifestyle perspective, which is really driving everything. One of the big things that I see is people suddenly realize that you can be creative with money and that it actually can be fun. And so when you do that, you've created a sustainable money practice rather than something that people need to sit down and do. Another thing is empowerment with money. Like it is really shocking how much confidence, especially women, act when it comes to investing. Like they have this fear that they're going to make a mistake with investing. And it's like, if you really look at it, you've spent $150 on some horrible dinner and you walked out and you're like, oh God, I'll never go to that place again. But like, you won't spend $150 to own a share of one of the largest companies in the world. So once you empower people to go, wait, it doesn't even belong in my mind where it belonged before. Like, this is accessible to me. There's nothing easier than investing and then feeling so like good about looking at what's going on and your money's expanding while you're sleeping. I mean, real quick, I went to Tasmania. So I flew from Los Angeles to Tasmania. And actually, I landed in Melbourne to do a layover before I went to Tasmania. This was just a few months ago. And it was funny because I checked my investing account, which I don't even do that much. I don't encourage people to just like frantically check it. And because if it feels good to you, check your account. You don't need to be locked to it, right? But I checked it. It was funny because I had a window open where I had my camper van that I was renting because I met a group of people and we were all driving around. And then I had my investing account and I looked and I was like, the amount that I earned in my investing account from the time I flew to Los Angeles to Tasmania fully covered my camper van for the entire 2 weeks that I was in Tasmania.
Wow.
And I thought, I've never linked this before, but I was meant to see this because when you look, it's kind of like seeing the miracles, right? When you look at the magic and the creativity and the way that you can shift your perspective with money, that it really is here for you to play with, then suddenly it's like, oh, well, then you don't need to get rid of all the conditioned, the lack beliefs. You don't need to even focus on that. You just need to create and allow money to be part of your creation process.
So I have a question because you said that one of the couples or people that you worked with said that they got out of debt from the investments that they did with you. And I've heard a lot of people say that you need to get out of debt first before you even think about investing. But are you saying that you think investing to get out of debt is also a good strategy?
I think you should do both. And actually that was the question that woman asked me when she came into the program. She said, and this was, I think it was like November or something in 2022. And she said, should I pay off my debt first? And I said, most people say that, but I think we live in an and world. I don't ever feel like I don't have access to whatever I want. And I'm like, no, I would do both. And as it turned out, the market moved up 26%. And then she was able to take that and pay that off. And I would still say the same today because it's irrespective of what the market is doing. debt is actually a form of abundance. It's just we've been conditioned to believe it's actually lack. But it can't be lack because energy can never be lack. Energy is abundance. And at some point along the way, someone believed in you enough to loan you money so that you could do something with it. Now we have all these stories about what we did with it, but it's still money. And so an investing account is expanding, and the debt account is something that you get to look at yourself. It's a mirror reflection. You get to look at yourself and you actually get to do something about it. But that's no less of a lesson. And we just have to stop equating things as, especially with money, as being good and bad. I made money, I lost money. Wealth is not linear. You ask anybody who's wealthy, it never was a straight up growth curve. And it never came to them the way that they thought it would. So why don't we just give that up?
You're really showing me that embodiment of Alan Watts with Warren Buffett. I saw that on your website. I was like, I like that.
Now explain that.
Thank you.
Explain that.
Well, I mean, Alan, we all love Alan. He can be a little heady with this stuff, right? And so the podcast itself is where it's my play space. I mean, they all are my play space, but that is where there is just no holding back. There is just like whatever comes up is going to come up and it's going to be dumped into the space. And there's really that when I started the podcast 4 years ago, I was like, I'm just going to talk. There's no structure, there's no nothing. And now it's gotten to be, a fairly good podcast. And so I think it's a bit like Alan Watts, where it's just you're just kind of moving energy through that is really not even yours. It's meant for other people. And so I get at least one message a day. And I kid you not, it's always the same thing that people are saying. It's just they say it in different ways. But the language is, how are you in my head? And so the only way that you can be in someone's head, so to speak, is to not filter yourself. And that was the only requirement I put on myself with the podcast. I was like, I am not allowed to filter this. I'm going to listen to what people are asking me, and then I'm going to pick up the microphone, and then I'm going to energetically respond, connect to them in the best way I can. And I don't know, I've probably got, better at it over time. And then the Warren Buffett is, that's sort of my own foundational principles are very much built on Warren Buffett, the long-term wealth, get into the companies that you energetically connect to. Like when he talks about how he found Coca-Cola, and he's like at the Bridge Club meeting with his wife, and every time they come there, they bring out the cart and it's full of Coca-Cola. And he's like, what is this stuff? And he saw people's reactions. And he is one of the greatest intelligent or intuitive investors ever. And he saw people's reaction. He's like, this is about to take off. So he invested in them. Same thing with Gillette. He's like, oh, wait, they're selling the razor, and that's not very much money. But then they sell you like the actual blade. That's like more than the razor. So once you sell that, then you get people to buy the blade. Well, I'm investing in that company, right? And it's really all this is if you can believe in it and get behind it, you're literally just following a bouncing ball.
And it's play. It sounds fun the way you just described it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's speechless.
Well, I am. I have this, for the first time, probably, this understanding how we have these overlaps in how we spend our energy and how we receive that energy. And everything is connected. That thing that you hear in a yoga class, we're all connected. It's more than just people connection, it's energy connection, no matter what would you call it? Profession, or, as an architect, when I went through architecture school, one of the gifts of architecture school is to design a building for a certain type of function. You have to know what the function is. You have to learn what the company is or the family that's moving into that house, what they are, what they do, what they like, what they don't like. And that's really powerful energetically around money for me, and especially with this conversation. It's every choice to invest, not to invest. Energetically, there's a connection to it and an intuition to it. And I've done the research on intuition, and if you're intuiting and you're right 60% of the time, you're in the top 1% of intuitive people. And a lot of intuition just hovers around the 52%, 53%, which is statistically significant enough to identify it as a thing. That intuition is just it's a miracle, but it's no more miraculous than our eyes or our ears or our taste, all the senses. And this idea of intuition being the sixth sense makes sense to me, that we have this quality that's not as visible as what we do with our noses and our eyes and our ears, but it's as wired into the human species. And now it's like, okay, what do we do with that 60-40, the mystery of 60-40? How do you, and I would imagine this is true in your world of investment. How do you live with mystery? How do you live with mystery, Elizabeth?
As far as money and investing,
Yeah.
or just in
Yeah.
general, I find that I'm better at certain areas of my life than others. So I think how I live with mystery would be, I think because when you say that, when I think of mystery, I think of like the magic that you're allowing, right? I think I've always had an element of allowing with money since childhood. I've always been very, congruent with that. I've always felt the flow of money. I thought it was kind of confusing when people were like, talking about money in weird ways. I'm like, what's the problem here, Um, but then I have my other areas, right? Like, relationships have been a challenge and that's energy too, right? So then I sort of like, we're going to get our hard knocks in life somewhere. And so I think with a lot of people, it is in the area of money and they continue to sort of bang their head against the wall. So I think, as far as that's concerned, my growth right now is really in terms of relationships, first and foremost to myself, and then my outward relationships, and then I think that we're just looking at the mirror. It's all the same mirror. It's like, where's the mirror going to show up? If it's showing up for you in regards to money, which I would say it is, if you don't feel full flow with money, or you want more money than you have, like there is something amazing for you to see about that. And if you don't, I mean, it's just like the stuff you teach in yoga. It's going to keep coming up over and over again.
I just want to add one last thing. Mystery to me is trusting that something there's a need to trust our purpose here. And on a yoga mat, it's pretty easy for me to understand, what is it that I'm trusting. I'm trusting this element of our being that has served generations, thousands of generations of evolution of human beings to get to where we are right now. I trust this process. And this conversation, I don't know how we're doing for time here, Crystal, but this is a big topic. I'm about to open up the can.
Oh boy, Pandora's box. Here we come.
Here it comes. She's always wondering where I'm going to go with this. I was at this festival this weekend, Sedona Yoga Festival, and I met this man who's a consultant in marketing, but also he's a AI consultant. And so then we started talking about AI, and there was this realization that AI could be the end of the human race, which is very topical right now when you look at these ideas of these stages of intelligence, that artificial intelligence, until it gets to this super intelligence where I don't know if you've done any of this reading, at that point, the computer doesn't have as strong a need or any need for humans. And they're generating their own creative evolution. When I was doing in which this conversation has relationship in it, and one of the hardest things about my experience with relationship is divorce. And so I went through a divorce, and it shattered all the hopes and dreams at that point in time of what I thought living happily ever after was all about. However, in this process of healing or recovering from divorce, I signed up for this meditation, a year long. We met 2-year long, where we met 2 or 3 times a year for a week. And the teacher was I felt like he was teaching how we stay present no matter what the circumstances are. And one of the things that he used was this. He said, the history of the Middle East is been for thousands of years, there's been turmoil there. And especially, in the last 500 years, the turmoil has started to cause ripples globally. And I could solve the whole situation in the Middle East in a day. And so it's kind of a contrarian point of view. And so all the students are like, okay, Mr. Know-it-all, tell us how. And he said, okay, well, think about this. There's a super comet that's heading directly for Earth, and it's going to blow the world. It's coming in a week, and it's going to blow the world bits, and we're all going to be gone. Do you think there'd still be fighting in the Middle East if the reality was that in a week we would all be gone?
Right.
And of course, the logical answer here is no, there wouldn't be, because there's an inherent love of family, of children, of the things that bring that energy up in us that we all share. And that realization that we all share it, and that the inevitable we're going to be gone in a week is going to bring us all together, and we're going to look at people differently, and we're going to treat people differently. And then, then he said, well, what if it was 2 weeks? What if it was 2 months? What if it was a year from now? So he just kept taking it out until he's going to this place where we realize that that comet is coming. It's just, maybe it's our own death that is the comet. However, what I connected this weekend, here's this comet called AI that's coming. Is it coming 20 years from now? No. The projections are this possibility of super intelligence in AI is 2030. That's 5 years away. So if there's that realization, can we look at the polarities, this kind of the political chaos, the social chaos that we're in, and just start to look at, hey, human beings, there's a real potential here that our comet is 5 years away. Can we just decide to get along and focus on what's human and that we all share? Because no machine is going to ever have a beating heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this to me is really a wonderful realization. It helps me deal with the fact that possibility in the future of super intelligence in 5 years just helps me have conversations with humans, no matter what their beliefs are, no matter what their traumas are. Just, yeah, our hearts are still beating. Let's celebrate that.
Yeah.
And we have something that the machines don't have. We have
Yes.
heart.
And that's such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. And it's just what I really got from that is like that it has elevated your impact in the world. I mean, just like that, right? And it's showing us that there is no time because number one, it impacted you. It just took you up to the roof in terms of your own sense of what you're here doing and your purpose and the impact that you can have on people. And it also takes us back to how much more power there is within abundance when we collapse time. Because what I was thinking when you were saying that, one of the things that came up for me is if we had a week, how much more abundant would we feel even if nothing had actually changed in the bank account? If nothing had changed in the family dynamics, if suddenly that person that you need to do something isn't doing that, would you really care? Like all of a sudden the world would be brighter. And so when people are talking about, okay, should I even invest? Right? That's a long-term thing. Like if let's say that someone's like, oh my gosh, what if, AI is coming and what if the comet is here, right? The only really thing that you can do is, of course, work on our own presence, right? We know that. But it's also work on yourself from a state of allowing with money and get yourself to a place where you're not as dependent. Because when you can actually, my mantra is show up needing nothing, receive all. That's like, I'm always trying to apply that. So if you can get yourself to money wise, can you show up needing nothing to receive all? Then that energy, that lack energy goes out of it. And the crazy part is that that is when you get into that realm of not being able to stop money coming to you. It's just an element of sort of your conversation. It's just like you just elevated yourself with that story. The release of money will do that as well.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Wow, that's fantastic. I knew there was a reason why Janet was like connecting us in a way. And just, it is these synchronicities in life that, I mean, who would have guessed that we'd even be on this podcast having this kind of conversation after we were having coffee at the coffee shop next to the yoga studio?
Yes, I know. What a
Yeah.
gift. Oh my God. I will say the first time I met you, I was like, oh my gosh. I just knew. I was like, I felt a very strong connection with you. I'm very grateful
Ditto.
to Janet. Yeah.
Ditto. Ditto. Crystal, do you want to close or have something to say as we close?
Yeah, I just have one final question. So there was a question here about the role of identity, saying your biggest block to wealth is the person you think you are. So can you share an example of how someone can shift their identity to unlock new levels of financial reality?
I'd say that, well, there's a couple of ways that you can do it, and these are really easy to do, and this can cause like really monumental shifts in your life if you're willing to just take this on as sort of a practice. One of them is look at how much you have bought into the fact that whatever channels of wealth you have coming in now, look how much you've bought into the fact that that's the only way you can make money, because that's an illusion. If you have income coming in from one place, like that's the thing, like wealthy people typically have 8 to 10 streams of income. And so why not create that, right? And I would say don't get caught up in the amount. Like you don't get caught up, oh, I'm only going to make $500 there. Don't think of it as being like judging the number, because the number doesn't matter. That's just the result. Think of, is this something I want to energetically get behind and enjoy and create and just go out there and do that? And be in a state of watching the money come in rather than doing it because the money is going to be something. And you'll go through an allowing process. If you could practice that's one thing. The second thing is, and this is really tied into identity, is that we decide when we want a certain amount of money. Let's say we want to make $1 million. Almost on the heels of that, we decide how long that's going to take us. Well, if you say it's going to take you a year, it's going to take you a year because you're creating your own world. You've also said universally in that moment, I'm okay to wait. I agree to wait. You've also said to yourself, there's something I'm missing, which is not going to allow me to get the $1 million now. So then you've automatically put yourself into a state of lack. So I would say realize that there is no time. Time is a structure. And if you really want to use the energy of money, you can't actually use the energy of money unless you're willing to bypass time, because it's two different worlds.
Now we're getting into quantum physics
Yeah.
and things like that. Wow. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think, is there anything else you would like to share, Elizabeth?
I'm just so grateful. I mean, I'm so grateful for this conversation, for just meeting you both and just being able to, I don't know, this is the abundance, having these conversations, having these connections, having this, I don't know. I mean, really, it's kind of like you said, Peter, it's all one. Like if we just simplify it down, every single thing, it's just we're trading our energetic currency in the world in whatever way we choose, and it's one. So thank you for this.
Yeah. This is the byproduct, let's say, of the pandemic years, really.
Yeah.
That we've got this technology now that connects us with just turning on a box with some pixels on a screen. You know, the feeling that because I've had this, new relationship as a friend and as a student in person,
Yes.
I feel the same energy right now having this dialogue with you and seeing the pixels of your face dancing around the screen. As the only thing that's missing here, Elizabeth, is the hug.
I know, I agree. Dang it. I know.
Well, you can
Yeah,
screen
we'll
hug.
make up for
You
that
you
for
do
sure.
it like this, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. I know. I
Screen
know.
hug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do. I catch myself sometimes if I wake up in the middle of the night, at the whatever reason. And I find myself thinking about the podcast because it's really been a process to get it to where it is right now. And there's this feeling and this excitement about this ever slowly expanding community of souls that have been lonely in a way in a society that doesn't really understand us, that we don't just kind of toe the line behind popular culture, that we kind of move outside the boundaries of popular culture. And I think this little, I'm maybe I'll have a dream about it someday, but this ever growing community of inner dwellers, you know, that's kind of really exciting to me.
Yeah.
And I feel, I've had those moments in my life with Manduka in particular, where seeing something and then watching it grow exponentially, I know how that feels. And it requires work, but at some point, that work is taking care of itself in a way. And I feel that's what's going to happen here, that there's this sense and maybe AI, the threat of AI, but also the gifts of AI are going to wake us up. We're going to wake us up into, you know, the humanness in all of us.
Yes. I'm ready for Star Trek. I'm ready to live Star Trek. Yeah.
Are you?
Bring it on.
Well,
Oh, that's great. I can't even do that.
I'm still holding on to this idea that that there's something very special about Earth in the universe. There's something really extraordinary about this experience that we're having on this planet, and that builds gratitude for me on a daily basis.
Does it?
And I don't watch news much anymore. I don't participate politically that much anymore. And it's not that politics aren't important, but we're really, politics is communication. It's talking, it's exchanging, and that I'm going to keep doing for the rest of my life, just talking and affecting as many people, including myself, with that connection as I can. That's kind of my mission. And in my life, in that experience of that, the money is a byproduct of all that. The money just follows that energy. And yeah, I've taken a break from actively investing in other people's companies, but I don't think it's an accident that I'm meeting you. So I have a feeling that at some point that is going to also happen, that I will re-enter the investing kind of place, and you'll be my gal,
Oh, good. Whatever you need.
Yeah, right on. Thank
Right.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for being here and sharing with us.
This was
It's been
amazing.
amazing. Yeah.
That's it for this episode. Be well and stay open to the teacher within. If you've enjoyed our time together, follow or subscribe and stay tuned for upcoming chats you don't want to miss.